Now
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:06. It's O'Connor and Company here. It's our fourth hour of 4 hours of morning radio brilliance. And it's only brilliant today because we've got Mercedes Schlapp with us. Good morning,
Oh,
Mercedes.
that's so kind. Thank
Coming
you.
up in 30 minutes, the entire program is going to go to hell because Sean Spicer will be
I was
there.
going to say.
Lord knows
the
what he'll
IQ
want
level
to
starts decreasing quickly.
Joining us right now. Well, we're about to increase because one of the most brilliant
good.
women in American politics and foreign policy is, of course, Katie McFarland. And she joins us now, as she always does, on Thursdays at this time when we're lucky. Thanks, KT. Good morning.
Good morning.
It was quite an interview between Kamala Harris and Bret Baier. A lot of things stand out, but we haven't played this audio yet. I honestly found this exchange one of the most terrifying, actually. She is so far out of her depth here when talking about our foreign adversaries. It was the one question that had to do with foreign policy. Take a listen to Kamala Harris.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, in the several hours on each occasion that Iran posed a threat to Israel. I was there, most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Good Lord. And, of course, Bret Baier made the point that those proxies have been funded because her administration lifted sanctions or eased sanctions. But, KT, when you hear that, I mean, if you're Iran and you hear that, you're sleeping pretty good tonight, I'm thinking? I mean, that was nonsensical, whatever the hell. I don't even know what point she was making.
You know, Larry, I had a really interesting conversation this week with one of their supporters and said, look, somebody I've known for 40 years, and said, you can't, she's not going to really be in charge, right, if she wins? And he said, well, she'll have really good people around her, experienced people who've been working these issues for decades, and she'll take their advice. And so the light bulb went off in my head, and I said, right, you guys don't care who's president. You don't care if it's Joe Biden who can't find he can't figure out where he is. You don't mind if it's Kamala Harris, who doesn't really know where she is and probably doesn't care. You are going to just turn the entire United States government over to a group of, quote, experts, the geniuses who had gotten everything so wrong for 20 years in American foreign policy, whether it's Republican or Democrat, but the people who fight the forever wars, the people who don't know how to deal with China, the people who have an open border leading to, who knows what kind of ticking time bombs in the United States. These are the people that you're going to entrust, the people who've gotten everything wrong. And then the second light bulb went on. I thought, you really don't care about democracy, do you? You really don't care who the people choose to be their president because you're going to run things anyway. You are the most anti-Washington people there are because you don't believe in the principal foundation of this country that the people choose. And to me, that was two major light bulbs that went off, and the third one went off. And oh, my God, are we in trouble? I sure hope Donald Trump wins.
Yeah, I mean, KT, we're watching what's happening in the Middle East with Israel and Iran. We saw that the U.S. offered these anti-missile systems and troops over to Israel. I mean, how do you see this playing out in terms of the Israel-Iran situation and also the U.S. involvement in the situation as well under the leadership or lack of leadership of the Biden-Harris administration?
I think the deal that the, quote, experts tried to cut with Israel is that you really refrain from a full-out attack on Iran's nuclear or industrial or energy sites, oil fields, and we'll give you these defensive missile systems, which you would like and which would really help you. And I think that the administration's rationale was We don't want this war to get bigger. Nobody wants this war to get bigger. But we also really don't want Iran's oil fields to be bombed, because Iran has said that then they'll bomb Saudi Arabia's oil fields, and then the price of oil will go up. It always comes back, Mercedes, to energy. America has the ability, with our oil and natural gas resources, to power the entire world for 200, 300 years, and basically to make energy to the United States just a minimal cost. I mean, we could do it cheaper than anybody else, better than anybody else, cleaner than anybody else, but the Biden-Harris zealots won't let us use American energy. So as a result, we're in these crises in the Middle East. We're in the crisis with Russia. And it's all because it all stems down to the central fact of their flawed energy policy and screwing up the United States' ability to be energy independent, have a strong economy, be the dominant country in the world to supply energy, and to use that leverage all over the world. They just won't get there, and it's so frustrating because Donald Trump understood it, he understood the significance of it, and he went ahead with it.
We're speaking with KT McFarland and reflecting on really where this presidential race is headed with regard to national security and foreign policy. This, by the way, this answer about Iran and the nonsense that we just played for you, and then there ended up being a discussion about the original Iran nuclear deal. And in your estimation, she tried to make the point that Donald Trump walking away from what had been a Obama-negotiated Iran nuclear deal in some way empowered Iran. Is that your understanding of what happened there, or was it really more about the freed-up funds that the Biden-Harris administration allowed Iran to have during their tenure?
I think she has it upside down. The Trump approach was very different. The Trump approach was use America's economic weapon, use our energy weapon, bankrupt Iran, push Iran. Iran doesn't want a deal, doesn't want to have Israel survive, doesn't want to have America survive. Understand that and accept that. And what do you do about it? So Donald Trump understood you bankrupt Iran. They may have ambitions, but unless they have the money to carry it out, they can't do it.
Sounds a lot like Reagan's approach to Soviet Union in the Cold War.
Exactly, Larry. That's how we won the Cold War. We didn't go to war with the Soviet Union. We pushed for their economic collapse. We got the price of oil to go from $40 to $18 a barrel in 9 months. It destroyed the Soviet Union's economy because they needed to export oil to pay for everything else. And then we stopped the technology flow to the Soviet Union. We won on economic terms. We bankrupted the Soviet Union. We can bankrupt Russia today. We can bankrupt Iran. And President Trump understood that, and that's what he would do, as he keeps saying, on day one, I'm going to drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
Well, that's a code word for saying I'm going to go back to our strategy of bankrupting Iran, not trying to coddle Iran, not trying to appease Iran, not trying to have a negotiation with a bunch of leaders who absolutely have no interest in anything other than killing every Jew on the planet and destroying Israel.
Yeah, and by the way, the ripple effect will also will defund Russia's war effort as well.
Yeah.
Katie, you just reminded me when you told that story about one of the Harris people saying, well, she's going to be surrounded by people, and you had said, you don't really care who the president is. It's really about the team. Listen to this answer. Now, this had to do with an economic policy, but it's really revealing, and you just sort of triggered it with me when you gave us that anecdote. Listen.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States.
What we would do as President of the United States. I don't think I've ever heard a presidential candidate use a phrase like that. Have you, Mercedes? What we would do as President of the United States. Who's we, KT McFarland?
Well, it's not we the people. It's not we the people. It's we the people who think we should govern you.
Yeah.
And it is, you're not smart enough. This is a complex world, as they're feeling. We are the only ones who are smart enough and understand the complexity of modern society and modern technology. We're the only ones who can govern this country in this complicated world. And that just flies in the face of the founding principles.
Well, I'll say, and all their names aren't on the ballot. There's only one person's name. So if this really is we're going to be president, don't we deserve to know who we is or are? Anyway.
Obama involved.
KT, we got to leave it there. Always good to talk to you. Always smarter after speaking with you.
Always smarter.
Pleasure and an honor. Thanks.
Kamala Harris approached her interview with Bret Baier with a clear strategy. First, we've learned from Bret that they showed up late and tried to play out the clock.
Dana, you've been on the other side. You've been on the rapper as a press secretary interviewing a president. And, I'm talking like 4 people waving their hands like it's got to stop. I had to dismount there at the end.
Yeah, it's got to stop, they were saying. But that was after, as I mentioned, they showed up late.
So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m. This was the time they gave us. Originally, we were going to do 25 or 30 minutes. They came in and said, well, maybe 20. So it was already getting whittled down.
It started at 5:20 after she arrived at 5:15. They ended up doing 23 minutes, and this is the best way to give you a synopsis of Kamala Harris's strategy once the cameras were rolling. And every single question, every single challenge, every single follow-up.
Donald Trump and
Democrats voted.
Donald Trump, 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 and
So the plan there, obviously, was not answer questions, not defend my policies, not talk about Kamala Harris. It's really attack Donald Trump and drag him down.
Yeah, and I think she failed miserably because I think one of the things you're seeing with the voters, especially kind of those independent voters, those voters that are still trying to decide, they want a vision for America. They want to know, how am I going to make sure that my food prices don't go up, my gas prices, my rent, my mortgage, and they're not feeling these relief coming from the people who've been in charge for 3.5 years. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard to deflect to Donald Trump and say, okay, it's his fault, it's his fault, it's his fault. That's not going to be enough if you don't present a vision to contrast Donald Trump's policy vision, which we know would lead to a prosperous economy and provide relief for American families.
Yeah. The first 10 minutes of this 26-minute interview, by the way, was all about the border security, illegal immigration, the crime that has come with it. She deflected on everything. Every time asked about border and whether the border was secure, she just said, well, our immigration system is broken. Right. Just to be clear, and I want to remind everybody, because this is a tactic, you can have a broken immigration system but still secure the border. Mm-hmm. Okay, the two do not go hand in hand. Trust me.
Right.
And then they turn to the economy.
Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump.
Yeah, so if you listen to the experts and you look at people who study these things, then our plan is better. But that basically she's saying anyone who thinks that he's better on the economy, they're not smart enough and they haven't studied it properly, which is a bit of an insult, I think, to people who actually know their lived experience and it was better under Trump.
Yeah, look, I think we're running into the situation with her that she was on such a defensive posture. She didn't make any inroads. I think Bret Baier, yes, it was a tough interview, but a fair interview. But I think for Kamala Harris she cannot connect with these voters, and her policies are so just at such a superficial level, and then it just doesn't register. It's not common sense policies that we're seeing coming out of Kamala Harris on any of the issues. And then she's like, on immigration, well, Congress can fix the immigration system. Well, wait a second. You could do a lot to ensure that you will deter people from coming.
Of course,
to the border,
over 90 executive orders reversed what had been in place before she got there, before Biden got there as well. And clearly her strategy yesterday had nothing to do with defending or explaining her policies. Her strategy, and I think this will be the strategy between now and Election Day, is going to be reduced to just making people afraid of Donald Trump.
That's the goal. That's what Barbara Comstock wants. Be afraid
of
Donald Trump.
Bret Baier did approach her with a question that still to this day had not been asked until last night. And he sort of sucked her into it. He said, this is how Bret set it up. He said, you've said that Donald Trump is unstable and that he's not fit for office. And she said, yes, that's right. Donald Trump is unstable. He can't do it. Everyone should be very concerned about him and his abilities. And then Bret Baier turned it on her.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Oh, gosh, I'm so sorry. I picked the wrong clip there.
There's too many to pick from.
There really are. There really are. No, he immediately turned it to her on saying, well, when did you first discover that Joe Biden had missed a step? right? And
yes, the mental decline question.
And she did not know how to respond to it. I'm so sorry. I thought that I had that right there in front of me, but I will search it out. In the meantime, here we go.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Ooh, that's a
Joe
long pause.
Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions.
So she goes on a word salad ramble saying,
well,
Joe Biden's great.
She was caught off guard.
Yeah, she
and
was.
Then she turns it on Trump's mental decline, right? Which so ineffective because at the end of the day, it is a valid question. Like, when did she start seeing mental decline for Joe Biden? It is very clear that that's one of the reasons why he got out of that race.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Imagine the Hindenburg exploding against the hull of the sinking Titanic during the Spanish flu epidemic, and you've got a good inkling of what I believe Kamala Harris's performance with Bret Baier was last night on Fox News. Disaster.
That's pretty dramatic. That's like a history lesson all in one.
Well, yeah, and that's just in the first 12 hours since the interview. More things are going to start emerging on social media like this. Here's a moment from the interview.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
Wait, she would never say that about the American people? Wait a minute. I remember her saying this.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24? They are stupid.
Yeah, she would say that about the American people. Joining us right now for some crack analysis as he provides his audience every single day at the Sean Spicer Show, where he's been doing some fantastic analytics on where this is going state by state over the next 19 days. It's a must-watch. Sean Spicer. Sean, what did you think of this interview last night?
You know, the funny thing is, well, first of all, good to be with you guys this morning, as always. The funny part is I was watching the media reaction this morning, and they kept saying it was a tough and contentious interview. And I put this out on Twitter this morning. I was like, you mean asking actual questions about policy and your flip-flops? I mean, this is amazing that they find it contentious for Bret Baier to ask her the questions that we've all wanted asked since she pushed her way into the nomination. I don't find that contentious. And the funny thing is I got into it last night on News Nation with Dan Abrams, and he was like, well, it was contentious. I go, have you ever watched a Sunday show with a Republican? Like, they're like, let me just ask
every
you,
week.
Right. I was like, they're like, Congressman, why does Donald Trump suck, and why do you suck for thinking he sucks enough? And then we're going to go to our Democrat who want to react and find out. And I'm like, Dan's like, well, I guess that's a good point or whatever. And I'm like, no. You guys literally on your side just have never actually had anyone ask them a serious question about their policies. But he goes, something about right-wing. I go, Dan, just pause for a second. Tell me what question was a right-wing talking point or a right-wing question. Because the number one and number two questions in every poll are the economy and immigration. So Bret Baier did the job that people who used to call themselves journalists did. And you guys got upset that it wasn't like, tell us about your favorite ice cream, Joe. Right. So, but that all being said, if you, this is kind of like, if you read Politico's playbook this morning and didn't see that interview last night, you have a completely different and distorted view of what happened. They're like, she was tough and combative and da-da-da. I'm like, she didn't answer a single question. She couldn't account for her positions. Her answer about what she would do different than Joe Biden was, I'm not Joe Biden and my wife. Okay, well, that again, what policy? And it should be, those would be, the funny thing is those aren't tough questions. Those are layup questions. That's like going into an interview, and when they say, why do you want this job, being like, I grew up in a middle-class family with a second mom that lived upstairs. I mean, dude, answer the question. But here's, let me just bottom line this from an operative standpoint. You go on a show, whatever that show is, to reach a constituency, right? Yeah. So you go on Charlemagne the God to reach black men. You go on Univision to reach Hispanic voters. You go on The View to reach women. You go on Fox News because it's a constituency of more conservative-leaning folks that you haven't talked to and want to get at. And when you go on there and you fumble the question on immigration, which is probably the top issue for most conservatives, and can't apologize for your border policies, can't answer for them, and can't account for them, you move the needle backwards. And so I don't, if you're going to go on a show, you know, it's part of the problem that I always tell people when I'm doing training sessions is, remember, there's a difference between a tactic and a strategy. A tactic is putting out a press release, sending a tweet, drafting a speech. Those tactics are all part of a greater strategy. You use the tactics as part of a strategy to get to a goal. Is the goal to win? Is it to get more market share, whatever? And I watched last night and I'm like, what did you guys think you were accomplishing here?
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, by the way, I just Venmo you the money for the Yacht Rock tickets.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Sean.
We'll get to that.
Okay, I'm just letting you know that's done. I checked that off my list. But you know,
I'm ready.
What? I didn't do the handling fee of $500.
Do we want to just abandon the political analysis and go right to the
before we go
concept?
to Yacht Rock. But I agree, Sean. Like, one of the things that I'm a little bit perplexed about, I know they were trying to talk to these other voters, but knowing that Kamala cannot get through any serious, tough interview, why would her campaign put her through that? The ringer like that? It makes no sense to me. It was such a bad play. It was such a bad campaign decision.
Yeah, so great question. Here's how I would answer this. I said this the other day that I think at some point when you're elections are all about trends. Where are you at what time? Are you surfing the wave at the right time to hit the beach, right? You want to be timing it so that you've got the momentum with a few days left. That momentum switched. We were having a Bret summer, whatever the heck the libs call it, and everybody was high on her. And then I would say people were Kamala curious. They were like, okay, we'll give this woman a shot. She couldn't answer the question over and over again. And they said, you know what, we're going with the trusted record of results that Trump has. Yeah. And so the shift occurred about a week ago. And I think what they said, and this is, you know, to answer your question, Mercedes, they said, you know what, we got to do it all. We're going to do a CNN town hall. We'll go to Fox. We need to do something different because whatever we're doing isn't working.
Flood the zone.
And that to me, flood the zone. And at some point you have nothing to lose. It's like putting in the backup quarterback and you go, just go put him in. Who cares? At this point, what do we have to lose?
Yeah.
That's where I figured they are media strategy-wise.
Yeah, in a strange way, and I just read an article about this over at Unheard, Trump is now representing a return to normalcy compared to the erratic Kamala Harris policies. Hey, I do want to talk about the Yachtly Crew concert tonight, and we will, but quickly, I saw this story, this media personality over at Puck News, Tara Palmieri.
Oh, yes.
Well, she claims that you denied her a press pass when you were press secretary in the Trump White House. But then you go to her Instagram, and I see all these pictures of her in the briefing room, sitting in the chairs, talking with a press pass around her neck. Can you clear this up, Sean?
Yeah, so first of all, let's just be clear. 8 years after the fact, she did an interview on Mediaite where they're trying to talk about how tough she is. Now, this is the direct quote. She says, I was denied a press credential to cover the White House. So, quote, I had to cover it from outside. Direct quote. Go read that. You know, I put it on Twitter. You can link
outside, like she's standing out in 3 feet of snow in front of the White House.
Right. So I called Mediaite, and I said, you guys printed the story, right? And it's demonstrably false. One, I never denied anybody a credential. It was my policy, by the way. A policy I was very proud of. The idea was, hey, you want to cover the White House? God bless you. Come cover it. I'll give you a pass. I just fundamentally believed in that, right? That's not – I mean, Sarah had a different view, but that was my view. And so, number one, that. Number two, do you not think if I denied someone who was at the time with Politico that there would have been a story saying Spicer denies a pass, which there wasn't? Right. Would the White House Correspondents Association put out a story? Yes, or a release. So then I said to Mediaite, hey, by the way, you can take my word on this or not, but also you do know she posted 13 pictures in the briefing room, one of which has a pass around her neck. And they said, we'll get back to you. Well, after a few days, and they refused to do anything, I had my lawyers contact them and say, this is defamatory and demonstrably false. They're saying, by the way, right now that they stand by the story, to which my answer is, you guys realize you wrote in a story denied her a pass, and she had to, quote, cover the White House from the outside. She's standing inside on her own Instagram page wearing a press badge in the briefing room. And I'm like, at some point, this isn't Clue, like Professor Plum with the knife in the dining room. This is actually, like, you guys are this stupid. But the reason this is important, Larry, is that for people, when they sit back and get their news right now, you have to understand, if media is standing by a story that is provable false by pictures, by the own subject's Instagram account, and that's, quote, a story they stand by, what else are they lying to you about?
That's right.
This is the problem with today's media. They stand by. They could have easily. My lawyer said at the time.
Yeah.
He goes.
They
I'm sure
will
they'll
lie.
just put out a mealy mouth. He'll go. They'll pull out a mealy mouth apology, and we won't get anything. And I said, okay, fine. If that's what they give us, and the quote was, "We stand by our story."
There you go. I'm glad you're
suing. That tells you where you're.
Well, and they're so. And can I just add one thing, Sean? I know you're very excited to talk to us this morning, but the reality is that the media has so much power because of that New York Times versus Sullivan case. It's impossible to almost to sue the media because they have so much power. They could defame you and they could get away with it, and that is just it's horrific.
Yeah,
I mean,
you have to. As a public figure, and this is why sometimes people say you should just do this, as a public figure, you have to prove actual malice, that there was intent for them to defame you. And that's the hard part, is they can say, oh, it's a mistake. That's my point, though, is that in this case, it's not a mistake. There are 13 pictures on Tara Palmieri's Instagram page where she's inside the briefing room. You guys knew that, and you still said it. That is defamatory.
That's the key. You brought it to their attention, shown them the evidence, and they stand by it. All right, let's get to
priorities, people. Priorities.
Sean Spicer's jam tape here. A little Christopher Cross, a little sailing. Tonight, we're going to be, and we've got a group. How big is our group that you've assembled here for the Birchmere for Yachtly Crew, the greatest yacht rock cover band of all time?
Right now, we're looking at a baker's dozen, I think. I just tried to get Chris DeGaulle to come down. I told Chris DeGaulle he was welcome to come join us.
He
mocked us, folks. He
mocked
us.
us.
Now, I will tell you.
How is that possible?
Yeah, he said something. He said this is nothing more. I forgot the phrase he used, but it was rather insulting.
Oh, I'll
get
him
tell you,
for that.
I'm excited because it's at the Birchmere tonight. I'm near and dear, one of the greatest music venues of all time. I go to the Birchmere. I say, hey, I'm bringing this crowd from MAL. They're all excited. They said, we love Mark Levin. We love Chris Plant. I go, well, Mark's not coming. And Chris
Those are the
Plant's
two
not
people
coming.
who aren't going.
Right. They go, well, that's cool because, we tune in every day to Vince Collins. They go, oh, well, Vince is coming. They go,
Vince is coming.
There you go.
So where's Larry?
Said,
I mean,
no. They said, is Michael coming from Larry's show? I said, Michael's coming from Larry's show, and they're like, oh, that's awesome.
Why do I subject myself?
Heather Hunter, come on.
Yeah.
Matt Foldy's going to be there,
Heather?
and then Mercedes is bringing a crew from Newsmax.
Jen Pellegrino's coming, so
it's going to be great. And the drinks are on Sean.
Awesome.
Yeah. By the way, I'm headed. If you're interested, I'm going to Pentagon City. They got a Forever 21. I'm getting a new outfit.
Oh boy!
And on that note, we will see you tonight, Sean, and we'll see any of our other listeners who are coming to the Birchmere. Let's get to Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Traffic is brought to you by Jiffy Lube.
Forever 21. Professor Plum.